So today we are so very honored to have John Kay as our guest. He is the founder and leader of the rock icon band Steppenwolf and more recently the co-founder of the charitable Maue-Kay Foundation, which is engaged in the protection of wildlife, the environment, and human rights. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Yeah, the success of Steppenwolf enabled Jutta, my wife, and as of this October, my life partner for 60 years. The success enabled the two of us to take some of our ducats and go see the world. And that in turn led to meeting various people, different places, Africa, Indonesia, whatever, who, unlike some of us who have been in search of the spotlight, have dedicated their energies and life to something greater than themselves. And it was quite a humbling and inspirational experience, which led to Jutta and I after we built a school in Cambodia. And one thing led another, and our little family foundation is really what we concentrate on. In fact, about 10 years ago, Jutta and I sold all of our music industry related assets in order to have money in the bank and time on our hands to do what we really want to do now. So that's as as what's his name used to say, and that's the name of that tune. Right. So
Well,
Bob, it's I'm all yours.
oh, great. I was going to say that we still claim you as Canadian,
Good.
uh, especially this area because, we are right between Buffalo and Toronto. And I know that was along your route in the early days, uh,
Correct.
physically and musically.
Have you by any chance seen the Born to Be Wild film on the CBC documentary channel?
Yes, and
Okay.
that's what prompted me to reach out. Now we have met before, about 15 years ago. You allowed me to use your back page lyrics and masthead for uh, some newspaper articles that we were doing that ran as long as I was at the paper, and they focused on local heroes and what they were up to. So it was the perfect lyric, and we met. And you were actually I have a photo here from back in the day.
Good heavens, where did we meet?
That was at Art Park
And where?
In Lewiston, New York.
Lewiston.
So just
Not too
south of,
far from Buffalo, right?
just north of Buffalo, right?
Just north of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, as you can well imagine, it's been now since the formation of the band in 67. It's been over 50 years, done a lot of shows in a lot of places, played
Yeah.
all 50 states more than once,
Oh yeah.
missed out on one Canadian province.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's
PEI.
really. Yeah.
Yeah. Played
Yeah.
all the others. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. So,
Yeah. The
yeah,
movie, the movie is what prompted me to reach out because, like I said, we had been in touch before, and I had followed your stuff, and that movie. So for those of us or those people listening, it's called Born to Be Wild, a band called Steppenwolf. It was just released, and I think it's rekindled interest in the band and also reaching a new young audience. What did you think of it?
well, I was quite astonished because I'll try to keep this condensed, but it was an interesting story, in my opinion. All right, so I'm, with my stepdad and mom, moving into a newly built a little apartment in Hanover, Germany. It was after the war, etc. And below where we lived is another family with another young man, roughly my age. We weren't really close friends, but we knew each other. Okay, move forward many, many, many years, and this fellow, whose name is Manfred, is listening to a local radio, and the DJ back announced saying, and that track is from John Kay's new solo album, Heretics and Privateers. As many of you may know, John Kay was born as Joachim Fritz Krauledad. Well, Manfred almost ran off the road and said, that's the kid I. So he is now a journalist and convinces his boss to let him come to the US to see Steppenwolf perform. And that in turn then led to 2.5 days of interviews that wound up in this aforementioned German nationwide publication in a weekend edition that was like 3 or 4 pages and lots of photographs. Well, Oliver Schwen, filmmaker, sees this and said, "This is a great film to be made." And he managed to contact me. I gave my approval that we should do this. And then it took quite a long time. Camera crews in Winnipeg, in uh, Reno to interview Mars Bonfire, camera crews in Florida to interview Michael Monarch, the original guitarist, etc. And so time goes on, and Oliver says we'll have the world premiere at the Munich Film Festival, which in fact took the place last year over the 4th of July weekend. Jutta and I and Nick flew there and enjoyed the whole stay very much for various reasons. And I had met Oliver before. He's quite a and what he had done with that surprised Jutta and I, and to a lesser extent, Nick. And when his crew was filming me in preparation for the film, he went to see Nick, who lives like 20 minutes from here. And they went into Nick's basement and discovered Super 8 film footage that Nick had shot during his time with Steppenwolf that he had not opened or seen since 1972.
Wow.
And it was a treasure trove of footage that Oliver, whenever you saw, since you saw the film, whenever you saw Nick or anything related to Nick, that was the discovered footage that Oliver, with modern technology, managed to polish into something that could hold its own against the, contemporary recorded video and stuff. So that footage I had never seen, nor had Jutta seen it.
Mm.
So half the film was a total surprise to us.
Oh, nice.
And we were just floored by how he had taken my stuff and Nick's stuff and had created this film that was something totally fresh and different from anything that I expected. And of course, the good thing was that I had made peace with Nick sometime prior to Jutta and he and I uh, coming together in Munich. And maybe the most enjoyable part post screening was that Nick and I were able to be on that stage with Oliver and let everybody know that despite my very intense anger during the period when Nick and I were, you know, I hadn't spoken to him since, let's see, probably in 1972
Wow.
because of the what I call the bogus wolf thing. There was a long, drawn out legal battle. I won't go into that. It's too much time wasted on it. But the film turned out to be much more than I had anticipated. And Oliver being this kind of he didn't want the film to be just, and then we had this record, and then we did that. He saw to it that we got together with the CNIB people because there was a story to tell about them helping me on my first path of getting a guitar and everything. And he contacted Humberside Collegiate School, where I had gone in Toronto to school, and they let us use some of their facilities. He had some really good creative ideas, which found themselves in the film. So I was very happy with the film.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I thought it was a good job, and it was nice to see you guys, and it was nice to see some of that history brought back. Uh, and again, I won't dwell on it either, but you mentioned the struggles with the bogus band. And again, I'm not going to dwell on it, but you spent so much time, so much dedication bringing that name back, and that was you got to be applauded for that because it was a lot of work. I remember you coming to Thorold where we lived at the time, back in that era. It must have.
Yeah, it was an arduous, and the ones who deserve the most credit for that over years. I mean, we're talking about during 82, I think it was, whatever. There was one year we were on the road for 20 weeks at a time, doing 6 shows a week, 500-mile overnight drives. And when we came home, we After a couple of weeks, went back out again. I think that year I was at home for Christmas and a couple of other things. But it was the fans. The fans were the ones who saw to it that every time we were about to go out on that stage, I said to the guys, look, forget about the fact that, 2 years ago we were filling arenas. These people in front of us, 500 of them, they're not above being this shitty club. They want to hear us play. And our job is to send them home smiling and tell everyone they know we saw a really great show, because only then do we have a chance of gradually getting some credibility and work our way back up. And that did, in fact, over the period of several years until about 87, we went from really bad clubs to better clubs to larger clubs to small theaters to larger, etc.,
Right.
until we had Wolf World under our control. We had gotten, merchandise corporation, a website, had our own recording studio, our own tour bus, big triple sleeper truck with 105 pieces of gear.
Mm,
And that was all accomplished because of tenacious, every night, deliver the goods.
right. And you sure did. And and that makes me think back even farther because first of all, I love Heretics and Privateers, one of my favorite albums of all time, for
Thank
sure.
you.
And the later stuff too. I mean, Rock and Roll Rebels, Rise and Shine, Feed the Fire. I love those albums. And again, it all seems to me that you must have spent a lot of time in introspection when you were young, because you mentioned chasing excitement and uh, the glory, but that whole time you still had that social consciousness weaved into all your lyrics.
Well, you're quite right. You're quite observant, because I attribute what you just finished saying to two reasons. One of them was that my background, being raised in Germany after the war and having learned the horrendous history of the Hitler Nazi regime, um, deeply kind of embedded in me is something that, in a paraphrased manner, is written on the outside in Berlin of the Checkpoint Charlie Museum. It's in English and in German. And it says something like, visitor, learn from what happened here. Go home. Be ever vigilant that the ugly face of fascism never rises again. And so I looked at particularly America from an outsider's view, one who believed in the American Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all of the, and when all of a sudden there was a clash between what was presented as written in stone versus, you know, um, dogs biting peaceful demonstrators in Birmingham, Alabama, and everything else, something didn't quite fit. Now, this was at a time when a couple of years later, visiting the Newport Folk Festival twice, 64, 65, when Dylan went electric. Well, there were writers, not just Dylan, but easily half a dozen or more, who had something to say about the here and now, concerns about being shipped off to Vietnam, the fact that the civil rights was still on the go. They had just killed three young guys down in Mississippi for trying to get black voters registered. So I then heard the Byrds electrifying Dylan songs. Now, they didn't necessarily go after the most politically focused songs of his, like Masters of War, whatever. But I thought, listen, I'm a big fan of the blues. I see no reason why we, Steppenwolf at that point, or even earlier, the Sparrows, could not do blues rock sort of, focused instrumental music that at times, not exclusively, but at times um, can contain lyrics that are beyond the typical. And of course, we were kind of in sync with the times we were living in. And so several of our songs from the first and second album and the Monster album, which was a political concept album in its entirety,
Hmm.
that reflected all that. You know, it was sort of like, here is this young kid from Europe who loves the idea of America, fell in love with rock and roll and the films out of Hollywood and everything, and wanted to go there and wound up there and started playing music there. But they were still clashes between the present, the way that America presented itself and what all too often was a shortcoming of their ideals. So that's my long-winded answer to that.
Well, no, like I said, to me, that's what drew me in. I mean, the first time we talked, the first time I met you, it was those lyrics that, I mean, obviously I liked the rock and roll aspect when I was young too, but like I said, the later albums and especially Heretics and Privateers just drew us in to what you were doing, and that continues. And I don't know if you remember, but at the time we used the back page, as I mentioned, lyrics
Yeah.
as our masthead. But also at the time, a local suicide prevention team adopted your "Feed the Fire" as their theme song.
Wow. I have a quick story to tell about that. Feed the Fire is brand new. We have a fan who wrote to us about what I'm about to tell you. He's in his car with a DVD, with a CD player. He has a friend next to him in the passenger seats. He said, "Man, I just got this. You gotta hear this." So he plays "Feed the Fire," and after a little while, his friend says, "Pull over here for a second." And he did. And his friend opened the passenger door and poured something out against the curb stone. And the driver, the writer of the thing, he says, "No, what was that about?" He said, "Well, those were the pills I was going to take tonight."
Mm. So it was a perfect song for that. It
Yeah.
certainly, it sure was. Uh, and others. I mean, there was so much good stuff in there. It was just awesome. And like I said, to me, that was what drew me in that combination of, and you mentioned, the excitement and the passion, but that's a different kind of passion, also super important.
Yeah, it's something when you, particularly during that period of the anti-Vietnam War demonstrations all over the place, certainly in Washington, D.C., 500,000 young people, and it went around the world. I mean, there were massive demonstrations in Berlin, in Paris, in London, and young people on the move, young people convinced that the future could be better than the present and wanted to apply themselves to it. So there were certain songs by a variety of artists that were sort of the theme songs that everybody could sing along with. Or one of the most rewarding things about the Monster album in particular, but it also happened with the occasional other individual song, was that we would get feedback that was along the lines of, yeah, that song gives voice to my feelings, to my opinions. It's my personal anthem. It speaks for me. And that was the most rewarding part about writing songs that really resonated because it's like a kid leaving home. You have no idea what it's doing out there, but once in a while you get a postcard that says, "I'm still out here doing stuff." And, so that was always something that really made you feel that your efforts were worth your time.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And actually, there's a line in there: when you finally reach your star, always remember who you are. Now, that's great advice for others, but was it a reminder to yourself as well?
Well, yeah, because I'm just now reading a biography on, Mork and Mindy Mork.
Oh,
Uh,
Robin Williams.
yeah, Robert Williams. And it's a very interesting read. But the point is that at a very young age, he'd been struggling, playing the clubs, everything else. So now Mork and Minnie's a huge success, and stuff is coming at him he's not really prepared to handle. people mobbing him, because they recognize him. And Mork and Minnie at a certain point becomes the number one viewed television show. And when I read that, I thought, yeah, when all of a sudden we, Steppenwolf, became very successful. In the early days, it was not, we didn't think of ourselves as very successful rock stars. First time we played in Hawaii, we had all these long-haired Hawaiian kids. We had a great time. And then we saw a handful of guys that had no hair. We talked to them and said, well, we just got back from Vietnam, but we know your music. We bought your cassettes at the PX and played it.
Mm.
And we were still accessible. We could still interact with the audience and kind of get a feeling from what in particular they found of interest in what we had to offer. But then came, the Ed Sullivan Show, and then came the Smothers Brothers Show, and selling out arenas, and cocaine, and God knows what else. And you become enamored with your own self-perceived grandiosity, you know. And it takes a little time to take a step back. And certainly when the bogus thing, this bogus wolf came along, that really was an ego adjustment that brought you back to, no, you're not in direct communication with the supreme being. You're not, you're just a guy who got lucky with a guitar and a lot of help from similarly talented band members, and just, a lot of times people now are complimentary about this, that, the other thing. I said, well, I've had a lot of time now to look over my shoulder, see where I've been, where I came from, how it's
Right.
affected me. And the truth is that I am more lucky than I have sense or talent,
I don't think
because
so. I doubt it.
we, we were, if that person hadn't crossed our path, or if,
Right, right,
I might be living under a bridge, So it was just uh, being honest with yourself. No, you're not a gene, so great. That's the reason why you still admire the various performers that inspired you to try and follow their path.
right.
Instead of I've achieved the top of the mountain and all of you inspirational people are still wherever you are. No, it's the other way around. When I did this podcast preparation, um, I had to dig up a lot of photographs because just to interject the podcast thing for a moment, the podcast intention, and which it still is to round up enough subscribers with my YouTube channel that we get some sponsorship funding, the money of which would go directly into the Maue-Kay Foundation, because by now we're coming towards the end of just the family being able to keep funding it, because while Steppenwolf was still active, Jutta and I would take the share of our net proceeds from touring and funnel it into the Maue-Kay Foundation. Well, we retired the band 2018, so that source of income is no longer there. So we have to turn to other means. So the idea, however, of getting this funding from advertisers, well, I kind of went by the boards when our home last year got flooded out. We had to,
Mm.
you know, I'm in a different place now and everything else. It threw a big monkey wrench into promoting the podcast and continuing to have more than the 6 episodes that are on the channel are ready to be viewed. So I'm sort of in a recovery mode. I haven't fully gotten to the point where I can literally take a day or two of several hours a week to prepare, future episodes. But in the process of putting together the current episodes that exist, okay, I went through all the photo archives, but there was a lot of stuff I had to find from other sources that would illustrate what the heck I'm talking about. If
Right.
I'm talking about visiting the Playboy Mansion in Chicago, then it needs to have a photo of the Playboy Mansion. And I have a wonderful video editor in Austin, Texas, to whom I would send all of my pieces, and he would put it all together. And I'm very pleased with the results, which are once again embodied in those 6 episodes. So if you go to the channel, which is very simple, it's youtube.com/ and then the at sign. All the handles now have to
Hmm.
precede with the at sign. And then it's RSTWA, which are the first letters of the name of the podcast, which is Rock Star 2 Wildlife Advocate,
Right.
RSTWA. If you go there for the first time, it'll automatically launch a minute and a half trailer that explains, I'm doing the explaining, what's this about and why. But if you come back to the channel, future date, it will not pester you again with the trailer. The algorithm will know you've been there.
Right.
And so now we're in the process of trying to encourage as many people as we can to visit and click subscribe, because it's the subscription numbers that will be the deciding factor of eventually having some sponsorship money for the foundation. So that's my pitch on that.
Well, no, and we definitely put those links up as well. And that, that's part of what I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, I know that's what's important to you now. Can you tell us a bit about the foundation so that we can let people
Sure.
know this in?
I'd be very, very glad to. Jutta and I, as I mentioned earlier, were traveling the world in between touring breaks, whatever, and came back from visiting Angkor Wat in Cambodia. And there was a young fellow that took us around. He was a survivor of the Khmer Rouge killing fields. We come back and we discover there is a fellow who has CambodiaSchools.com. I'll go there. Yuta and I decide to build a school there, which we did. Talked to our financial people. They said, well, if you're going to start doing that sort of thing, you need a foundation. So let's set something up. Turns out that same year was our first visit to East Africa. And we became friends with numerous people I could mention right now, but that would eat up too much of the time we have. And so we then redirected our interest in life to what the foundation is all about, protection and preservation of wildlife, wherever it may be. Um, and we sold all of our music industry related assets and refocused what is important to us in life. In fact, here at the Lobera Theater in Santa Barbara, I will be presenting a film about the tremendous work and history of the godfather of elephant research, Ian Douglas Hamilton. That film is called A Life Among Elephants. And his whole family are friends of ours now. So that's really what we're doing now, which is to get as many people interested in lending a hand in protecting our living treasures, which are unfortunately declining because their living space continues to be reduced. So, but there are those amazing people who continue to make a great difference in that battle. And as long as we can, we're going to, because to be quite honest with you, even though we are all for all types of wildlife, but the ones that really get me here are the elephants, because I've spent more time among them, and they are just astounding. They just recently discovered they give each other names.
Wow.
And when you have a brain that's 4 times the size of human brain, I believe there's a purpose for that.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. And I'll just say I did watch the film on the website, and you certainly have some successes there. It's not all doom and gloom.
Oh no, and it's inspiring to be people who seem to never run out of energy or passionate enthusiasm. Well, it's just, humbling because when you're self-focused and I want to be on that stage and play my rock and roll, that's all fine. You're not hurting anybody with that. But you see that others are an example of what else can be done. So,
Right. Now, my wife always says that music keeps you young, and maybe that's what got you up to 80, but I guess this is now what's keeping you young.
well, she's onto something because the world of medicine has found that people with advanced Alzheimer's, you play them music, they come alive.
Right.
There's something in your brain where music plays a special role. So by all means, let music lift your spirits. I mean, when you hear a song like what's her name's Angel, it's just a song that you come home, you're all beat up, the world's been unkind to you.
In the arms of an
I
angel.
get emotional about it because in the arms of the angels, may you
Right.
find some comfort there.
Right. And I just again say that some of your songs do that for me. I love a lot of it, and in fact, I don't think of anything I don't like.
Well, it's very kind and complimentary of you to say so, but as a songwriter, that's always the greatest reward that you can hope for. You made a
Right.
connection.
Right. And you mentioned the blues early on, and we talked about introspection, and I think that's the theme through most of my podcasts has been that kind of thing with the other artists too, and they feel that too. It's an emotional end of the musical spectrum.
Yeah, it's I mean, there's a reason I think many more, probably more than one, that music universal. I mean, you go anywhere in the world and somebody's beating on a drum or doing something, dancing to indigenous music, whatever it is. And and whether it's Mozart or Jimi Hendrix, there's just something that gets a hold of you. And thank God we have it because in the darkest of times, music can be a source of solace.
Now you mentioned, retirement, but you also mentioned generating funds. Have you thought of doing a solo blues album?
Yeah, well, in a way, that Heretics and Privateers album is sort of that. But
Right.
you, I
That-
um, I have to tell you, I at this point I have a little bit of problem with my left hand. Um, my right hip may need to be replaced at some point. At 81, you're kind of like a vintage car with a lot of miles on it. You're still running, but there are a few dents in the fender. And so right now I'm sort of out of the music business,
Right.
but I still enjoy music. I still play lots of music to myself. I still have a couple of guitars that were not totally destroyed by the flood. Um,
Mm,
but right now, that's not at the top of the list. But hey, McCartney's still out there.
yeah. That's
Um,
that's just me being selfish.
yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, is there anything you want to leave us with that
Well, I
we haven't covered?
appreciate the opportunity, to have kind of stated my case, as it were. And I would encourage and I would ask your listeners to do me a favor if they're so inclined, namely to go to my YouTube podcast channel and at a minimum simply click the subscribe button.
Right.
Whether they view any of the episodes or they don't, or ever come back again is kind of secondary to the fact that right now we're focused on getting as high a number of subscribers as we can muster. So it
Right.
would be much appreciated if they, spend 30 seconds to do that for me.
Yeah. And I'm sure they will, and we will definitely encourage them to do so. And like I said, we will put up the links. Besides this, I have a number of um, Facebook pages that will share it there too. And I also write for Blues Rock Revue magazine, and I'll talk to him if maybe I can encapsulate this into an article and get some attention there as well.
That would be great. By the way, one of the reasons I'm not on social media, my wife Jutta is to a limited extent, but I found that I don't want my time wasted with silly comments and trolls. And Charlie Wolf, our tour manager for over 30 years, and still runs things. Steppenwolf, uh, Wolfpack fan club, and everything else. He forwards to me the kind of things that I don't resent, but
Right,
there
right.
I'm not going to waste any time on it. Said, well, I was in the second row in St. Louis in 1990 69, and you what kind of a guitar was that? I'm sorry, I don't have the time for it.
Right. All right. Well, we're going to run out of time, so I don't want to end right in the middle sentence. So thank you so much for doing this, and we will share everything we can. And I will send along the link when it turned into a podcast, and I will stay in touch with Charlie as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time you've given me.
Thank you. Take care.